All right, real quick, I just wanted to go over what the shader node is because it's kind of like a really useful node, but there's like no explanation on what it can do and how to really use it. The only explanation I came close, which is where I found it from, is the Milo Labs tutorial on how he's using it to make all these extra highlights on this little letter. You see the little highlight there, then a highlight, blue highlight there, and then to make also like that plasticky looking effect over there with the reflection map. And so I thought I would just go over what the heck this is. So we have our text here, and then I have this weird little contraption thing, but it'll make sense as we go through it. But this makes a map for a create bump map, which makes this nice map and also normalizes it. So right now when you put something into a create bump map, everything is like 0.5 brightness higher than it needs to be. And then if we go in the brightness contrast and then put the brightness down by negative 0.5, then it kind of normalizes this map. So you can see like this is actually blue and this is actually green and red up here. So if you like see at the bottom the colors are, it normalizes the colors pretty much. And then this goes into this Boolean. And so it's taking the original footage and the Boolean, and it's basically merging those two channels together. But what is usually you can actually see something, but no. So right now it's copying only the background input, which is yellow input. So it's going to just show the normal input that's there. But if we go to the aux and we have enable extra channels, that's ticked on, then over with the X, Y, and Z, you can see that the X is connected to the red of the foreground. So basically on that map, the Y is connected to the green and the Z is connected to the blue. So if I just view this correctly like this, you can see that these two images are getting smashed together and putting out actual outputs, but it's only in this node and only this node can read it. And so that's where the shader node comes in. And so once you put the shader on, as you can see, it gives us this nice glossy effect. The little map I'm using, use any black and white reflection map, but I'm just using a noise that's on settings like this for little white specks happening in a little bit of a gray, and just like that on a gradient, and that kind of gives me a nice map looking thing. And yeah, you can see that there's giving us reflections and it's extra stuff that's all on this shader. So how does this work? First, we have the ambient control. So that controls how much of the actual color of the node before it's coming into the color. So if we turn this up, you can see that's just our normal text that's over here. And if we just turn this back down, you can see now we're getting more of the reflection map and do that. So I kind of find a balance in between there. That usually works, or a little bit brighter. Just find a balance that you like. And then a diffuse. So I haven't really used the diffuse that much, but it basically makes the highlights spread out more and looks more like a brighter reflection. So I kind of keep that down to a lower end because I actually want to see a little detail on the sparks, like there's some lights in a certain direction. Specular kind of does a similar thing, just makes it brighter. And then the reflection. So the reflection is this map and how much is being added to the section. So turn it off, there's no reflection, and then just a little bit of a light. And then you could turn up the reflection to actually see those little details like that. And I usually try and keep both these values, if you add them together, like below 1. And so add a little bit of that, add a little bit of that, and then you get like a nice value somewhere around there generally. And if you don't like the way that the this is refracting, you can change this by doing the reflection type. It gives us a little different little reflection maps, but for this in particular, it looks a little flat. So I like the reflection one a little bit more. I don't know why, but yeah. Then we have the equator angle and the polar height. So what does this do? This actually controls the light that's being shined in order to cast those little highlights. So for example, if we change the equator angle, see nothing happens, and then we change the polar height, it's gonna bring this light across to the other side. So think of it if like you have a sphere, right? And there's like a spotlight in the sphere, and you're using the X and the Y to control where you want that light source to be shining onto the text. So if it was actually in like 3D space, which is not. So it's kind of faking 3D lighting, which is kind of nice. So you can play around with this. So it's here, you can see, if we just bring this over, nothing's there, and then bring this over it to bring a nice shine around, just like that. And so just play around with the values really to get the light where you want it. I think the light's on the top, or top end, more over here, and then bring this around. See, like, okay, we can just get a little bit of that highlight on that edge right over there. Usually it probably works better with a darker piece of text. So let me just turn this to like a really dark gray. I mean, I think that'll work. Maybe the gray's not the best. Let's turn it like darker red. All right, you can see, the main color's not really there because the ambient is low. So if you start bringing it up, it actually brings it brighter. So you have to find a nice balance in between this, get the value that you want, because also the reflection map is also bright as well. So bring this down, bring this up. I think I need more ambience than I do reflection for this one, and I guess that'll work. And then let's move our light. You can see the reflection is going in a different area, somewhere around there. So it's nice on the left side, and then we can bring it over and see where we want to place it, just like that. Yeah, okay, something like that should be nice. And this again, forgot to mention, but it's just going into a brightness and contrast, which has the low and the high. down, so kind of clamping the values a little bit more. For some reason, I find that to have like a better interaction when it's duller, and I think that's also what Milo did in his, where he desaturated it to 50% gray. So kind of just clamp those values a little bit so they're in the middle. If you want to do that, 25% up, 75% down, and then clip these values by looping the black and white, and then also pre-divide and post multiply. This is going to a blur, and so if this blur wasn't here, if we look at this map, this blur wasn't here, we just have that edge. And if we look at our shader, there wouldn't be any shading on it. So we need that blur in order to create this nice map. And then we have our brightness contrast and normalizes it, and then put that into the boolean right there. And then we have our nice reflection just like that. And let's say we want a bigger bevel, just blur it more. And yeah, now it's like getting more rounded, but you know, it gets rounder, but the actual text doesn't get rounder. So at some point it looks a little weird coming from certain corners, and you just got to be mindful of that. So bring this down a little bit. I like it having it towards 4. I think it's a nice balance between the two. But yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to go over.